Introduction. I think we're at 7 o'clock. So welcome everybody to our June meeting of New Mexicans for Science and Reason. I'm Dave Thomas, the president. This month we're delighted to have Luis Contreras-Vidal, who will be talking about data centers, promises versus reality. And Luis has a Ph.D. in experimental physics and a bachelor's degree in physics with atmospheric physics concentration from New Mexico Tech. And his graduate research has involved a lot of lightning research, thunderstorms, high voltage electrical discharges. I used to work on that stuff up at Langmuir Lab also, way back when I was a student.
Nice.
So, Luis currently develops instrumentation for scientific vacuum systems and laser spectroscopy. He's an outdoor enthusiast, a trail runner, and climber, and enjoys New Mexico's landscapes. So, we're still getting people floating in. So, welcome, Luis. Let's hear about data centers. We were fortunate that our ill-conceived data center here in Socorro appears to be on hold, but things can change. So we learned a lot during the last few weeks, and I'm sure Luis has some interesting things to say about all that.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Thank you for the introduction. As Dave said, this they were trying to build a data center in Socorro, so a lot of us got together, and gathered as much information as possible and tried to make it public, to inform public opinion. I think one of the things that helped us is that the company was trying to build a data center in Socorro was not prepared at all. It seemed it was more like a real estate speculator than actually somebody with a background to build something like this. A lot of what I'm gonna talk is also like kind of these red flags to notice. Like you don't need a lot of science. You probably with basic physics you can figure out like the things people are saying are not scientifically sound. And it's just like people that are trying to take advantage of this bubble. So I'm gonna start moving with the presentation. Ah. So this is what we're gonna talk, just about the background, what happened in Socorro. I'm gonna focus on some back of envelope calculations, like some of the promises this data center said. But like with just simple calculations, it was obvious that these people are like not prepared for this. I want to talk about just data centers and finance, like what are the effects they're having on economy, or the things that we should be careful about. Ethics, I think there's like good, things that we need to consider, the ethical, and then just some takeaways about all this. Um, ah. So this is my personal background. As Dave said, I did a PhD in physics. I work on did experimental physics. Right now, I'm building instrumentation. I have published a couple of papers. I really well trained about like reading data, instrumentation, specs. I mean, I'm still early in my career, but I have like plenty of experience in that in this context. So as they were saying, like early on March or April, these companies show up to Socorro and say like, "Hey, we're gonna build the largest green data center here in Socorro." Uh, a lot of people came together. People went to meetings. People were host public forums. There was a lot of pushback against the university, right? Because there's they were trying to partner with the university, and at the end, with the effort of people, there was some enough pushback for this company to at least for the moment go away. Especially what helped a lot is like the county is considering passing a moratorium, to actually think about the kind of regulations we need for data centers. Um, One of the things that was interesting about this company is like as we were investigating like who are these people, um, me and others found out like this guy that was behind the company didn't have any qualifications at all. This is we forward this information to this journalist Joshua, and he published this article. But the same guy that was trying to build the data center in Socorro had failed other two or three similar projects in Illinois. That he will come to small towns, promise, the new a new investment that will change everything, say or will say the right words like Bitcoin, solar energy, and but at least his career, and one good thing about the internet is like if you take the time, you can dig enough information, from companies and people. So what we found is that this guy didn't have, had never even completed any projects, so that raised a lot of red flags. Um, for me, one of the things that was like kind of shocking is like I went into the website of this company, uh, like some thanks to the guidance on somebody else, and like just reverse Google every single of the images this company had, and they had listed all these projects, and every single project they had listed, there were images that they stole from other websites. So here in the left is a screenshot from their website, and you can track that image to a different website. So they just grab one photo and put it on their website as as something they have completed. And this is another example how they just created the appearance of expertise by stealing photos from other websites. Yeah, this is another photo they took from the internet, and even this one that is just a 3D rendering. So again, this is like, now the alarms were really going off. Like this guy has so many failed projects, and his website is like, doesn't is taking the work of other people, and and listed it as his work. This is one for me was one of the funniest. Um, he This is a plot, some data that he has in his website. This is the original photo, and this is the one on his website. And he even covered, the cover the source, like the credit that who created this the plot. He even like hide this, So I don't know. I mean, I spend enough time in academia, and I was like, like academic honesty is like super important, right? Like if it's your work, you should be proud of show it. But if it's somebody else's work, you should always take the credit, to all the time to credit other people. So why is this guy not, didn't make the effort, well, or why was he stealing all these photos from other websites? Like is he a scammer, or what's the reason? Um, so this company makes a lot of promises. These are the three main things I want to focus about. He said, "Hey, we are gonna just build all these in 10,000 acres. This um, this this data center is gonna consume 2 gigawatts, of energy. We only need 60 million gallons of water, and we're gonna generate all this water via atmospheric water generation. So, those sounds like good numbers, but when you have the background of like this guy had so many failed projects, and his website, was questionable, like I was like, okay, like where are these numbers coming from? Um, so the first number, Solar farms typically require between 5 and 7 acres per megawatt. So use a simple calculation. If it's 5 acres per megawatt or 7 acres per megawatt, use the surface area of the needed, for the solar panels. It already covers more than the area that he said that he will have, he will need. Like 10,000 acres use of solar panels. There's not even a space, for 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 the warehouse, for the storage of this of the chips. Like everything will be just solar panels. So it's kind of worrisome. Like even a simple calculation like that cannot be done. And as I said, like maybe a lot of the companies of now the data centers, I want to say like, oh, we are going to use solar energy, but I think it's always important to consider, well, what's the footprint, of this um, uh, solar array? Like I'm all down for solar, but I think it's different when these solar panels are powering these industries and not powering our homes. So we need to be mindful about how big those footprints are. Um, the other thing he said mentioned, is like how much water are we going to use? We're going to use a closed loop, so we don't know we are not going to use a lot of water. This is usually how a data center cools down, right? The chips get hot. You need to be cooling them down so they work. So you run water close to the chips. That water gets hot. It goes to a chiller that is some kind of, you can say like a refrigerator, this instrument that cools the water more, but then also you need another second loop of water to cool down this water, and usually you end up to cool that first loop, you use evaporation. So there are more efficient ways to do it, but this is the basic mechanism. So one of the things this data center was promising, we only use a closed loop. We only use a closed loop. Well, I mean, physics-wise, like you need to remove that heat somewhere. You know, it's like this could be a closed loop, but that closed loop is gonna move the water somewhere else, or that heat to another loop, and the most efficient way to do it is water evaporation. That a lot of data centers use cooling water. So so yeah, that was another thing, thing to point out in this case. Um, so just basic physics, like evaporating water takes energy, right? You have the transition between solid or between liquid and gas. You need some energy, right? So you can do like kind of the worst estimate of how much water a data center will take. This is the latent heat of vaporization of water. Um, so that's how much energy you need to evaporate that water. This is the energy the data center was going to consume. Simple equation to get the how much mass, convert to gallons, and estimate, simple estimate, 20 million gallons a day. Albuquerque uses 80 million gallons a day. So this will be the worst estimate, right? Because data centers can, have ways to, reduce, be efficient on how much water evaporates, but at least having the ballpark of what's your worst scenario, I think is important. Um, so and the reason, I think it was important to calculate this number is because this is something he published on his website. He said, oh, we are gonna use 6 million gallons over 7 to 8 years. Well, that number doesn't make sense. I mean, 6 million gallons over 7, 8 years, that's like 2,000 gallons per day, and that's like the equivalent of use 200 kilowatts. So no way you are going to have the capacity, to cool down 2 gigabytes. I can believe you if you would say like 6 million gallons per day. okay, that makes sense. Maybe your system is more efficient and you can go from 20 to 6. I can get behind that maybe. But saying 6 million gallons over 7 or 8 years, just the number doesn't make sense at all. Another thing that we need to consider is even if during this closed loop, you know, you still have you lose water to evaporation, you the pipes get saturated, so you need to open them and leak, all that water. So this water is not gonna stay there forever. Like, these lines need to be clean. I need to feel again. So yeah. So even the closed loop part of the data center is not gonna be 100% close. So so now let's move to the atmospheric water generation. He said, like, well, we're gonna generate all this water via atmospheric water generation, and there's technology that can do it, but they are not really efficient. This is what a paper I found, on one of these units. Um, if you see the plot over here, there are two things that matter for these units to work. You need high temperature and high relative humidity. Usually, once you get above 30 degrees Celsius and like 30 degrees and 30% of relative humidity, you can start seeing that instrument work, and then it starts accumulating water. For anything below those numbers, like if you're below 30 Celsius or like below 30% of relative humidity, uh, these machines are not efficient at all. Um, so another thing I did, well, I download all the data, the 17 years of data of relative humidity in Socorro. And it's like, okay, that's fine where we have above 30% relative humidity. And there are some times of the day through the year that you can have that relative humidity. But then now you have the second problem. You also need a high temperature. So this plot of the winter, you have relative humidity or high relative humidity, but your temperature is really low. So your atmospheric water generation is not going to work at all. Um, you have same with the fall, doesn't get as hot. So once you consider, which window, it's just a couple of hours during the summer that you could generate water. So again, like another promise, another you know idea to some rain, but just the basic physics they are cannot support this. Um,
Luis,
yes,
I've got a question from the audience.
yeah.
One person is not seeing the slides. Can everybody see Luis's slides? Let me know.
Yeah, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So it could be
Because
it
maybe
sounds
they're in the wrong window of Zoom.
yeah, so if you're having trouble, maybe try to change the view, um, which will be somewhere on top. Zoom is strange. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure most people could see the slides there. Okay, as you were, Luis.
Okay. So so now let's assume the best, like we have the right conditions in Socorro. We have the temperature and we have the humidity. So we are going to install these machines. Um, so one of these problems with these atmospheric water generations in units is there. I went back. I need to figure out how to go back. A problem with these units is they are super inefficient. They consume a lot of power. They consume. So if we were trying to generate 20 million gallons per day, uh, that means we are gonna need to, these units consume like 350 watts per hour over liter. So if assuming we had the perfect conditions, that means we will need like 12,000 of these units. And just power in these units will be like 1 gigawatt. So like half of the energy, or we will increase the energy consumption of the data center, but from 2 gigawatts to 3, used to generate that water, assuming we had those conditions. So now our footprint of the solar panel array gets even bigger. So yeah, and I think the point of just showing is going over this calculation is like we have all these, promises like we can do it, we're gonna do it the green way. But you can just go on a piece of paper and do a couple of hours, of research to read uh, about this, and the numbers don't add up, So then, was this company qualified to do this job? And also there was a lot of secrecy. I think like if you work in instrumentation, you always are happy to share the specs of your devices. Yeah, that's the most basic. For sure, you will never share a blueprint of how your instrument works, but sharing specs is super super important. And this company, like everybody that asks the most basic question, he will he will tell people, well, you need to sign an NDA to know the specs. So I mean that's not how instrumentation works. You should be able to say the basic numbers. So and you need to be able to back up those numbers. So this is the Socorro part. Kind of like what the information we found, and how we try to share this information to tell people that this data center, the person behind this was just a real estate speculator and not somebody with experience, because his numbers didn't add up. So now I'm just gonna talk a little bit over like data centers in general, some information I have read and I think is important for other people to know. I think one of the things I found the most concerning, this is a analysis a Harvard professor did, is like if you don't account, if you take away the economical growth of data centers, the GDP growth in the USA in 2025 is 0.1%. I don't know, like I think the basic principle of investing is you need to diversify, and the idea that we are putting as a country all our economy, in just one industry I don't know. It's for me, it's pretty dangerous. Sounds pretty dangerous, right? Like we should have a resilient economy that is diversified, not just all into one thing. Um, there's another thing that people need to think about is like how AI companies are gonna affect the retirement funds. Um, these AI companies consume a lot of money. They are private companies, most except for SpaceX, but they're consuming so much money that they are they are in a need to move to the public market, to the stock market. And we have this bubble, this economical bubble that is moving into the stock market. And most of our people's 401ks, track the indexes of the Nasdaq index. So even if you are not investing in these companies, if this bubble implodes, it's going to affect people's retirements. So I think that's something like we need, like as I say, like all our economy right now depends on data centers, and now that all these companies are going public, they are uh, they are risking also the retirement of many Americans. Um, the other thing I would kind of want to mention is ethics. Uh, one of the things we are hearing now, is like, we need to do this because China is, if we don't do it, China is gonna do it before us. But also these companies are really, really happy selling AI technology to China, because it's a really big market. So I like this quote from this technology journalist. Like this idea is insane. It's like we are selling nuclear weapons to North Korea, and then we're bragging that Boeing is making the casing. So are we having a race against China, against AI, or why are we, then why are we selling them all this advanced technology, these advanced chips? I mean, imagine like in the Manhattan Project, just to compete better with Germany or Japan, we have shared, a lot of this technology, what was happening inside the Manhattan Project. And I want to also mention this, like these are some quotes of some of the CEOs behind these companies, and I think that they should be alarming for people. Like Sam Altman from OpenAI, he and all they have acknowledged that AI could destroy many many jobs. But it doesn't matter because according to them, GDP is going to be high. What are we going to do in a future where people cannot have jobs? There's a surveillance part, that this is the CEO of Oracle. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we are constantly recording them and reporting what they do. There's another quote about OpenAI CEO, and this idea that he's saying, oh, in the future, we are going to sell intelligence, as a utility. You don't need to think by yourself. You just pay for a subscription for ChatGPT. I don't know, that future sounds scary, like a future that people cannot think by themselves, cannot do simple stuff, like they depend 100%, on AI, or what if you cannot afford, that subscription, so I don't know, the idea that, like everything becomes a subscription, even access to intelligence, is scary. So there are things I didn't touch, because I didn't have the time. But I think these are other important things that people need to consider. Noise pollution, there's a lot of evidence, that the noise around data centers is pretty bad. Light pollution, in the case of the Socorro data center, we have astronomical observatories, and we have a lot of wildlife, and these wildlife corridors. What will be the effect of that light pollution to these astronomical observatories and the wildlife? CO2 emissions, right? If you're not powering the data center through solar panels, you're gonna use other ways to do it, and these data centers consume as much energy as cities. So it's like we are just giving up on climate change. Like we don't care anymore about how much CO2 we are emitting just because we need to win this AI race. Long-term jobs. There's a lot of jobs at the beginning of the construction of a data center, with construction-wise, but after that, it doesn't. These data centers don't need a lot of people to operate them. So even the jobs are just short and are not secure for long term. And also the idea that the main reason that people, all these billionaires are investing in on data centers is to replace as many people, with artificial intelligence. Water pollution, as I mentioned, like on the cooling, right? Even if you have your closed loop system, you need to leak that water sometimes, to clean the lines. That water is going to go into your gray water, and it's going to have different chemicals, that are needed to make the cooling more efficient. So yeah, like I'll say, like technical considerations. If it's like people should, if there's a data center coming to your city, is this established operator, like the one on those Lunas, at least it's managed by Facebook, or is this just a real estate speculator? Because I think that's happening a lot across the USA. There's a lot of people just speculating and buying land, with the promise of building a data center, but they don't really have the qualifications to build a data center. They're just acquiring as much cheap rural land as they can. Um, like they should be transparent. Like these companies, they should be able to share basic specs, as I mentioned. There needs to be transparency of how they're going to achieve, what they promise. Financial considerations, like I don't think our economy should be so dependent in a single industry. And we need to, how do we protect our retirement savings? Like our retirement accounts, like once these companies go public, all people's retirements are going to be also into in risk. And finally, like what kind of future do we want? We want a future where there are not people cannot find jobs, even the most basic jobs, because they have been replaced by AIs, or like people cannot think, like so. I don't know. It's for me, it's a scary future that doesn't put humans at first. Just to finish, organize with your community. Like Socorro came together really, really strong, and we were able to, put a slow down what was going to happen in Socorro. And I believe, like, if everybody comes together, everybody's informed, we still can slow down this bubble. So yeah, I think that's all what I have to say. So if anybody has any questions or comments, yeah, I'll be happy to talk.
Thank you, Luis. That was very interesting. I've got one comment.
Uh-huh.
Is that under the pollution sources, electromagnetic pollution is a real consideration because of the VLA. If we have a big noisy, electromagnetically noisy data center here in Socorro, that could shut down the VLA. And they're building a more sensitive VLA, next gen VLA. So I think John Spargo has pointed out that's a real concern.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, like in our case, yeah, like we
Where does electromagnetic come from? Transmission lines or inside from the data center?
Um, I think just the whole thing, the generating the power to run
Okay.
the data center itself.
Well,
They're real electromagnetic polluters.
can't the data center be shielded? You can't shield the outside stuff, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess like they could work into that, but the problem with this company, right, that was coming to Socorro is like they didn't seem qualified to do anything,
right,
Uh,
right.
yeah,
So
so
what is the alternatives? Because the genie's out of the bottle.
um, that's a good question. Um, I
Let
feel
me,
like uh, if we want to move to that future, maybe a slowdown. I don't think it needs to happen as fast as people want. I probably um, modular nuclear will be the best, but yeah, but I think you just need to be um with just move with care, with being careful, like what kind of having some kind of protections of what kind of jobs we expect these AIs to replace, like we cannot expect them to replace every single job they can, so I maybe it's a really uh,
can they be distributed so they're not so huge and concentrated, or is there a problem with latency of the data transmission?
I think one of the main reasons we're just seeing too much is because everybody just wants to be the guy that has, like especially with this real speculator, it's like, one company is gonna do the next big step of AI, and then
Right.
that company is going to need to rent, infrastructure. So that's also the reason we are seeing a lot, not because they are needed, but because these real estate companies are expecting, like, if Google makes the next big step, they are going to rent our infrastructure. But we don't even know if they're going to need that many, you know.
Well, are you aware that down in Doñana County, where I am, we just had um, a big controversy over a data center down here, and the county commissioners passed they approved it. They're still, but they're kind of, my understanding at this point, I haven't been following it too closely, but they're backtracking some. I think your data is really important. One of the challenges is the population that makes these decisions, like the voters and stuff, they're not very data savvy, and I
Mhm.
think that they work more with visual graphics and uh, converting kind of complicated data sets to something more similar, and also using analogies helps
Mhm.
people understand what the problem is. So
Mhm.
I had no trouble following it, but I think you have a really good presentation. I would try to figure out how to make it, which is always that gap between the scientist and the layperson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's good feedback. I think I'll see if I can work on that. But yeah.
And coincidentally, today I asked AI to help me solve a problem with this reassembling or problem solving a weed trimmer head feed line problem, and I was able to get from AI the solution or possible solutions and how to rebuild it. And I realized that call centers with people who you call up and say, "Hey, I have this problem,"
Uh-huh.
those guys, the problem solvers in those call centers, they're going to be taken out by AI. Their AI is going to be able to answer that question, just like it
Yeah.
happened to me today.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, this is it's like, if you're an engineer, if you're a scientist, I mean, there's like, these are super powerful tool, but as I say, like, for me, it's like, what happens to economy where there are no jobs, right?
Right,
Like, if you have 40%, 50% unemployment, I don't think there's not going to be a country at all, but the people behind that envision that. So as I said, I don't think, like, it's also the AI is completely bad. I think there is it can be a cool tool, especially if are a engineer, but we need to have safeguards for people, like, maybe the the level of replacement, needs to be of jobs needs to be reasonable,
right.
so yeah.
I had a question. You mentioned the water Gen
Uh-huh.
L for pulling water out of the air. Uh, is that really what Jason Beck is going to be proposing? Because I asked Jason Beck, I emailed him to find out, how are you going to pull water out of the atmosphere? Because what I've seen, that those techniques don't work very well in dry, low humidity environments like
Right,
Socorro.
right.
So, but is that a confirmed connection?
So the way I know it's this one is
Yeah,
because
the water gen. Yes.
the way I know is this one is because on the last town hall, I went and talked with him, and I pressured him about numbers, and he showed me a video of the unit working, and I saw the logo.
Can
So
I can I add something to this question
yeah,
discussion? This is John Hertz.
yeah.
Through the Inspection of Public Records Act, I was able to retrieve some things on this water gen. And just for layman's terms, it was pretty simple. They wanted to test a home unit that can produce about 100 gallons a day, but it runs at 240 volts, 25 amps, 24 hours a day. That's like running an arc welder for, all day long for, 100 gallons of water. I didn't do the extrapolations of to the bigger amount of water that's needed. But God, that's an awful lot of juice. And I can't believe he was wanting to test that and expected people to buy into it with those kind of numbers.
Wow.
But yeah, it's not. He never confirmed, and I think the reason he didn't confirm it was because he didn't want people to go to the specs. Uh,
Right.
but when he showed me the video, like I mean, you can take my word, but I saw the logo, and actually I was like, when I pointed out the logo at him, he covered the video, and he got really mad at me, like that. So
Oh,
One thing that may be, I don't know if it would help or not, but instead of having relative humidity, it might be better to use absolute humidity
uh-huh,
because then they don't understand relative humidity. They don't understand that warm water holds more moisture. And
uh-huh.
so it kind of misrepresents to people the lack, it's relative to the temperature. So it looks like it's higher, but really absolute shows it really low.
Okay, okay, yeah, that's good feedback. Write it down for the
You
future.
know, another thing I'd like to add to Luis's discussion is the lack of transparency. We fought tech really hard to try to find out some information, and it's very, very obvious that they don't want people to know anything. It's a secretive process, and it seems like that's going on throughout the country. It's not just in Socorro. These companies are really reluctant to release any information, so I think they're purposely trying to pull one over on the public as best they can. Um, but if you can get information when one of these proposals comes out, like Luis is saying, we could at least analyze it. But boy, they didn't want to give us a bit of real data. They wouldn't even present a map that showed where they're even looking specifically. So uh, that's a thing that I think is real important for anyone that's going to be watching the new data center. Get on board as early as you can and find out as much as you can because they're not going to give it on their own.
And following on that, I mean, for them it's a win-win, right? Because even if they don't have the expertise, they use and the data center is not built. Now they own a lot of land, right? Because
Right.
especially all these real estate. So it's just a land grab, like with the promise of a financial boom. If it doesn't work, the towns see the problem, but they still win because now they acquire a lot of land for.
Yeah,
So
and in this particular instance, they were talking about a 99-year lease, so that ties it up pretty darn long time.
yeah.
yeah.
Think that's a really good point. What happens if somehow the data center is no longer financially viable? Do they just leave? We had in Eugene, Oregon, Sony came in to make CDs for 5 years, got tons of credits and things. Then they were gone, and the building sat there with no tax revenue or very little. And then we had Hynix come in to do memory chips, and then the market crashed, and they moved to Ireland, left this giant compound empty, giant buildings empty. And then we had Symantec, who's doing data security and security for software. They came in and then they left and just disappeared. So I think these people need to have like a deposit that sits in accumulating interest that says, here's 20% that we're going to put in a bank. And if things go sideways, then you guys will get some of your money back. But what they're shopping for is the cheapest place, and that's what they always want to do.
You
Yeah.
know, one of the things that we're pursuing here in Socorro County is with the moratorium, they're establishing a blue ribbon committee to come up with regulations and things for development. And that's a real good point. I think one of the things we want to make sure is in that is if they ever do build these things that, like you say, they've got the money uh, tied up to clean them up if and when the time comes, because it obviously will come. Those things are not going to be good forever and it'll be a heck of a mess to clean up. So hopefully through regulations, we can, in at least Socorro County, kind of slow that thing down and make sure that they're financially viable.
So,
Yeah, the threats
and
to a data center to me would be increased performance from chips to where the whole center is not, the giant center is not needed. It might take 10 or 20, 15 years, but that's where things are going, to less energy consumption and more computing power.
And so,
Yeah, I think
oh, you
good.
mentioned John mentioned the select committee for the county commission. So I've asked to be on that committee.
Uh-huh.
John, I think have you asked to be on it?
I still haven't sent in my paperwork, but they know I'm interested. I've told them
Okay, and Luis, I think you'd be a great
Yes.
candidate for that committee.
I've been
Yeah,
encouraging these for a long time.
I'm planning to do it after this meeting. I was kind of worried, busy with doing the presentation, but it's the first thing I want to do tomorrow.
Yeah. It's a great presentation, Luis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I'll send it to Dave, and if you can forward, the slides to everybody.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. We're gonna put
Good.
this on
Yeah.
YouTube, so
Okay.
we will have the whole thing on YouTube
Yeah.
Wow.
probably in a couple days. And but yeah, if you put slides, we can post those on the NMSR website. If you were a regular visitor to nmsr.org, we're gonna redo the website pretty soon. So go ahead and read up on the Roswell and Socorro UFOs and chemtrails and 9/11 conspiracies, because that's we're going to be changing it pretty soon, and we'll still have lots of good content, but uh, replacing some of the old content might take a while.
Cool.
What's the
And
website, Dave? What's the website, Dave?
nmsr.org.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, check it out because in a week or so I'll be revamping it. It's kind of old-fashioned 1990s HTML. Really needs some updating.
Mhm.
that's what I am, old 90s HTML. Hey, so let's keep in touch. I'm going to see if there's a contact person. Seems to me that you guys are further ahead in the scientific analysis than we are. So I would like to keep in touch have somebody from our group down here in near Las Cruces keep in touch with you guys.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'll to share my contact information with Dave, and he can send it to you.
and Jim, yeah, let me have your group's contact and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just to finish, I think like one of the good things about Socorro is there's a lot of smart people. There's a lot of retired, people that are
Mhm.
living there working. So it was um, really easy. So or not easy, but it was just noticing all these red flags. Well, it was fast because because of all the professors or the students. A lot of the farmers are people that went to tech and are retired. And so yeah, there's a lot of people with so different backgrounds, and I think also the fact that it's a small town, kind of help with helping everybody come together compared to like cruises, right? Like once you get to big sizes, it's harder to organize, distribute information. So in some sense, being a small help, with this opposition.
I have a question. I've seen names that I hadn't seen before, like Joe. Where is Joe from? Joe Archbold.
Uh, I have to speak very softly. It's 2 o'clock here in Ireland.
Oh,
I'm on vacation here. My daughter just bought a house here. She teaches genetics in New Mexico, in Michigan, at the University of Michigan. So I moved from New Mexico up to Michigan about a year and a half ago. But before I left New Mexico, I had become a member of the New Mexico for Science and Reason, and I
um,
still kept track with you guys. And I just thought this was a very interesting presentation, which it turned out to be excellent. And thank you, Louis.
Yeah.
We appreciate all your efforts there. And it gave me quite a bit of insight when we have the same problems in Michigan, hopefully I'll be able to step in and say my piece.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I'll put my
Excellent.
contact information in the chat if people, so anybody feel free to contact me.
Yeah, and I'll put the chat information when we post to YouTube. I can put like the websites and whatnot. Also in the chat, I've posted the YouTube video for my group's data center song, "Dump the Data Center," and we performed that in public twice. And then when I put it on YouTube, the next day, Tech announced that they were putting a hold on the data center. So I'll take partial credit for that. But I think it was mostly the community rising up and saying, "Not so fast, everybody."
And I want to sort of introduce myself for those who don't know who I am. I came here about 5 years ago from Oregon, Oregonians for Science and Reason, and I'm going to be a name dropper here. It was Janine Denoma was the sort of the principal of that, and I was a member there for at least 25 years, going back to the time when we looked at uh, uh, Bigfoot, and now I'm into logical fallacies and cognitive errors.
There's been a big breakthrough in the Bigfoot research. The video definitely fake.
Can I ask one more question about the data center?
Uh,
I'm not an engineer, but there seems to be a flaw in the idea of capturing water from the air by condensation and then re-evaporating that to cool the plant. It seems like that can't be the most efficient way to do it. Couldn't you just, if you just use that energy to cool the plant, wouldn't that be more, almost by definition, more efficient?
Yeah, and you're actually some of the most efficient cooling towers, they reduce evaporation by using, say, more power. So yeah, but you're completely right. Like
Because you must have to cool coils to condense
yeah.
the water out of the air. So couldn't you just use that same process to cool the?
No, you're completely right. That's a logical fallacy. Like instead of saying we're going to capture, but this because this guy doesn't have he has never built a data center. He thinks he needs a lot of water, but yeah, like using power to cool that, to cool down will be more efficient than trying, probably more efficient. I don't have not the numbers, but yeah, that power probably will be better used
Yeah,
using the.
if I may say something, amplify this. I mean, it really doesn't make sense to do that two-stage thing with evaporative cooling and then condensing water from the atmosphere. You really want to use a refrigeration or a heat pump system that would directly extract the sensible heat from the air and water streams in the data center and dump it directly into the atmosphere. It doesn't make sense to do it the way they seem to be talking about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm not serious about this. I just was doing some research on how much energy is in a lightning strike. If we could just capture all these lightning strikes in New Mexico, we could run it.
Or earthquakes. We've had 6 earthquakes this
Yeah,
spring
I've
here
seen
in Socorro. Gotta be
One thing
careful.
I'd like to bring up for discussion kind of is where we go from here. And that is when this Blue Ribbon Committee starts identifying restrictions and regulations to kind of control this a little bit. What I fear most is that we're going to come across with all these parameters and these companies will just meet them. They probably will use AI to develop their strategies to meet those standards, and we'll end up with a data center. My belief personally is I don't want one at all. I know that's not very popular with some of the people who feel like you just can't say no to something like this. But my challenge, I think, and those who end up on that Blue Ribbon Committee, I think is going to have to really wrestle with how do we potentially just say no. Maybe it's impossible, but that's what I've been thinking about. And if anyone has any ideas, I'd sure love to hear them.
Good point.
Yeah, I think we come to like how many do we really need and how many of them are just speculation, right? So maybe, like does the USA, maybe we don't need 500, we don't need 10,000, right? So like defining that number, and where I think would be maybe a way to think about it. Like, how can we say no to a lot of them if we understand exactly how many are going to be needed?
Yeah, the attorneys get involved and they start saying things like, well, you can't just stop a private party from selling their land to a data center. And there's a lot of truth to that. But I kind of contend that I think call it another extension to the moratorium, call it a temporary ban, whatever you want to call it. But with the current technologies, I don't think they can build these data centers that are not going to mess up our environment. Maybe in 3, 5, 10 years they will be able to, but right now I just can't see them building anything that doesn't totally mess up our environment. Maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe there's a way to make one of these that everyone's happy with, but I sure don't know it myself.
There's there's something I didn't share because I know about it, but I didn't went through the numbers. But there are not even enough chips. There's a backlog of chips, you know? So we're building all these data
Right.
centers, but we don't even have enough chips to fill them in. So yeah, I'll
So
send you some videos about that you will find really interesting, John. So as I say, a lot of this is just speculation.
All right.
Yeah.
So, as far as the water needed, I think it would be very hard for them to justify tapping the existing rivers because everybody's already upset about that. I mean, down here in Las Cruces, we only get some of the year with the Rio Grande. The other time of the year, it's just dry. And if they start, what I'm concerned about is they tap the aquifers because, and the challenge with that is it's the commons. And, we all sort of own the aquifer, but then they take a larger than their share. And I was just hearing the other day that when the water is depleted from some of these aquifers, the way they're structured, they collapse and then they can't hold water anymore. So I don't know how much that's true, but it's probably true somewhat. And we just let people remove stuff from the commons as if they own it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big push in some parts of New Mexico here to force these data centers to go to use brackish water in the southeast part of the state. And I know those issues that you just brought up are real because if they do use that water, then you'll have subsidence and all that. But I still think it's better to try to use brackish water instead of fresh water for these things. I mean, I know that is a technology that's not fully developed yet to clean that water enough to make it useful. But I would think that's where we should maybe concentrate some energies is to make that a process that works where you can use brackish water or produced waters from these oil and gas operations that they're trying to get rid of. So I
Okay,
try
yeah.
my best to steer everyone to the southeast part of the state and not hit us drought stricken areas.
Well, I'm not sure about the definition of brackish water, but I wouldn't want it to be water that is on the surface, a thin layer surface that wildlife is using. You don't mean that, do you?
No, actually, there's a Bureau of Geology and Minerals put out a map that identifies brackish areas, and they have varying degrees. Obviously, a lot of waters are somewhat brackish, but the real considered, I can't remember how many parts per million it takes, but there's in the Roswell Basin and trying to think the other one. There's a couple basins that have deep brackish waters, and I would hope we could use that. But I guess there is a whole new technology that have to be figured out to clean that water to the point where you could use it. But I would think that's worth pursuing.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, this has been super interesting. Thanks for attending, everyone. Thanks, Luis, for a sterling presentation.
Yeah.
So
Thanks,
we'll have
Luis.
this out on YouTube, and I'll email the waiting list, same same list I emailed the Zoom link to let you all know when the video is up.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, everybody.
Dave, do we have anything coming up in the next few months?
Working on the next one. So if you have any ideas for a neat speaker, let me know. But we got some ideas for working, but it'll probably be about 2 months.
Okay,
Okay.
Cool.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a nice evening.
Yeah. Thanks for attending. Okay, I'm gonna end the meeting. Thanks, everybody.